Original music for this podcast has been provided by Ashiko Music Group 1 at gmail.com. Ashiko Music Group 1 at gmail.com.
Welcome to your Expat Expert podcast, where we share ways to study, volunteer, work, or retire abroad. Embrace this journey because your new life is about to begin. Today on the show, we have Mrs. Adriane Alfred with Peace Through Culture. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tiffany. It's great to be back.
Yes. So, Adriane, a couple of years ago, we did a podcast on how to work abroad. And now here we are post-pandemic. Can you share your services prior to the pandemic and how has your business changed post-pandemic?
Okay. First of all, our business before the pandemic began was rooted in travel. So, of course, that was kind of altered by the travel restrictions, travel regulations, and then also we serve a couple different populations, one being youth through our PTC Global Trek Study Abroad. And due to the pandemic, a lot of the schools, of course, were not traveling youth. And as a matter of fact, for 2 years, we had to cancel our summer program. So that was a huge impact on our business bottom line, as well as, just the inability to work with youth during those periods. We have other operations going on that were impacted, such as our Airbnb, which is Lotus, Costa Rica. That was impacted a bit, but after the first year of the pandemic, it seemed to pick back up, and now it's pretty much booming because people, I believe, are just really ready to do something different.
Right. Okay. Now, this podcast is focused on individuals who are seeking to study, volunteer, work, or retire abroad. And actually, your business touches all of those areas. You support the youth by exposing them to study different cultures. You create global volunteer opportunities. You're a global entrepreneur, and you're setting up your international retirement plan. So I know that's a mouthful, but how can you elaborate? Well, can you elaborate in these areas of study, volunteer, work, and retire?
Sure. So all of them are all very related. So my idea of retirement is not to sit on the front porch. So that just meant for me, I had to figure out what that plan was going to be like and what kind of maybe work or service, I guess you could say, that I wanted to do as a slowdown. I don't think I'll ever fully retire, and I'll always be working in some capacity. Mm-hmm. But Peace Through Culture is a nonprofit I founded 15, 20 years ago, actually. And it actually is designed to work. We work with youth, and the design of it is to give them global exposure, to allow them to do service learning in other countries, as well as to help them, or introduce them to STEM programs outside of the United States. So with that said, this project is something that I plan to carry on into my quote-unquote retirement. I think I'm going to call it my slow down years. So in my slow down years, I'll still be doing Peace Through Culture. That's my plan. And then, having the opportunity to host people through the Lotus Costa Rica Airbnb, that is a model I set up as well that would also extend into my slowdown period. And with that, I can either host retreats, I can host students, so there's, and then also on Airbnb, of course, we do, individual hosting. So those two projects in themselves have me both traveling abroad as well as at some point living abroad perhaps in Costa Rica.
Okay. Now, before we go into depth with your services, we're going to take a break, but how can you be reached?
I can be reached by email at adriane.alfred@gmail.com.
Okay. We will be back with Mrs. Adriane Alfred with Peace Through Culture. Have you studied, volunteered, lived, or worked abroad? Share your international experience with us. We want to hear from you. Feel free to contact us at yourexpatexpert@gmail.com.
Peace Through Culture Global Education Concepts provides global travel for youth, adults, and corporations. If you are interested in knowing more about our programs, please contact us via peacethroughculture.org, peacethroughculture.org.
We are back with Mrs. Adriane Alfred with Peace Through Culture. Now, Adriane, question 2 was very loaded, right? So
Yes.
I wanted to see if you can share your services, break it down on each aspect of being a global entrepreneur.
Okay. So Peace Through Culture Incorporated, we're actually incorporated, is a business that deals in global youth development. And that is when I talk about the PTC Global Treks and the PTC Core, which are programs, youth development programs that are, intended to be more global. And with those two things, we actually travel youth to different countries, such as Costa Rica and beyond. But the idea is to expose them to different cultures and to, as I said before, that's where they do community service or service learning. They learn about STEM and the arts and culture through the arts, really.
Right.
And the other part of our organization is PTC Travel and Event Company, and that's more of where we do our corporate meeting, events, and incentive travel programs, as well as we have a focus on global Afro-Latino, the diaspora, and beyond. So a lot of our travel programs that we set up for adults come under that category of PTC Travel and Events. So we do different things with adults as well, and corporations, as I stated. And then, last but not least, I did mention the Airbnb Lotus Costa Rica, and that is located in Costa Rica. And at our property, we're set up we actually host some of the youth for different parts of the program. And then we also have the opportunity to host different adult programs or retreats, I'll call them, as well as we're on Airbnb. So we are hosting people from all over the world with that project.
Right.
And so you had mentioned before about retirement, and I said, this is my slow down.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like a lot, but it's actually my slow down business. So I get to kind of pick and choose how much of it I do. So in that way I get to slow down. But most of these things I've started up years ago, and they're just, either grown some or shrunk some, depending on, how you look at it.
Okay. And lastly, how do you see the future of international travel for studying, volunteering, working, and retiring abroad?
Well, it's really hard to predict the future.
Right.
But I'm familiar with global events that have negatively impacted even my business. 9/11, when that occurred, we were actually just opening up a new spa in Costa Rica, Fusion Natural Spa. And the impact of 9/11 was really grave for tourism in Costa Rica. And it definitely impacted our income streams, but we kept going. Unfortunately, recovery sometimes with tourism can be slow. So the margins for my first business, I had a business partner then, was Fusion Natural Spa. So that didn't last, but I kind of pivoted into what I'm doing now with the Airbnb. So, it takes a while for tourism when it's been, hammered or hit hard, for it to come back to the point where you're actually, making enough revenue to replace the losses. So, unfortunately, or fortunately maybe, the spa business I had closed, but, I'm still doing a lot of the same things, but in a different way. So I think it actually also, when you have to pivot, you really think about different ways of doing, either similar businesses or something totally different. So that's worked out. As far as now, we have our first global trek going out this summer. So I'm really excited. We have about 18 youth on the first trek, and we're hoping to, inspire other schools to come on board and start up with their global treks again.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And then we also have, people in our Airbnb. We have that's been like really good since last November, I would say.
Okay. Oh, well, Adriane, thank you so much for coming on the show. But before we go, how can we contact you again?
Sure. There are a couple ways to contact us. And I said my email earlier, but I'll leave also the name of our organization is Peace Thru, and the thru is spelled THRU culture. So that's peacethruculture.org. And that's a great way to get in contact with us.
Okay. Well, Adriane, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening. We hope this gives you some creative ideas on how you can study, volunteer, work, or retire abroad. Shout out to my sound editor, Martin, and Ashiko Music Group. Feel free to follow us through our social media channels listed in the description below. See you next time.